Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video in the tunnel construction series, all leading to the goal of creating this risk management overview dashboard in Power BI. In the last video, we created our work breakdown structure in Excel, in SharePoint, brought it into Power BI, transformed the data, updated the data model to match the work breakdown structure, and created our first visual of the work breakdown structure as elements. In this video, we are going to work on the project schedule and the financials. In SharePoint, create a new Excel file and save it as project schedule. We are now going to create 7 columns: work package name, status, priority, start date, end date, days, and assignee ID. I already have this tab filled out, so I will add the information here, and it's available in the Excel file provided in the description of this video. And now the information has been added. So these are the exact same work packages that were part of our WBS structure. So these come from work package name in that column. So you can copy and paste if you're doing it for your own structure. Make sure you rename this tab to project schedule. And save your Excel as project schedule. Now we're going to go back to Power BI and import this file from SharePoint. So again, you'll want to go to Share, copy link, because this is the link we're going to need to provide SharePoint. And then you can use the formula bar here and delete everything after .xlsx. So I'm going to delete from the question mark onwards. Delete. And this right here is the link that I want to copy and provide to Power BI. I could Power BI, if you haven't already, rename your report page to project schedule. So I'm going to right click, say rename, say project schedule, because this is what it's going to be. And now I'm going to import the project schedule that we just created from SharePoint. So again, I'll go to get data, type web, select web, click connect, and I'm going to paste that file name ending in XLSX, and I'm going to say okay. If you need to connect to your 365, go ahead and do that if you don't see your tab here. Once you've done that, come back and select your tab that we just created as project schedule, and we're going to go back to Power Query and transform the data. Select transform data. Inside project query, we're going to transform the data of our newly imported project schedule. So again, we have our generic columns, and we want to use the column names that we know and we need for our project. So under transform, go to use first row as headers. Click anywhere in your query. So you can click anywhere. Do Control A and then detect data type. And we're done. Go back to home and click close and apply. Okay. So now we can see that our project schedule has been imported here, and we have our work package and all of our other columns. If we go to our data model, you can see that Power BI has detected a common key. I'm just going to move these over, and we'll restructure this towards the end to make sure that it's visually appealing and it makes sense. And we'll see that the work package name key has now been picked up, and these two tables are now linked. Going back to the report view, it's now time to add the schedule elements to our project schedule matrix. You can just click here to make the matrix bigger so it'll fit our elements. So now I'm going to bring in as values. So if you click on the matrix under build, we have rows, columns, and values. So I'm going to bring in as values the status, start date, duration, and the assignee. So I'll go ahead and start doing that as values, start date, the end date, and assigned ID. No, days. Days and assigned ID if you want both. Now, as your values come in, you'll notice that they're not exactly as we expect. So we have count of days, which we don't want. So we'll say sum of days. We have count of assignee ID, which we don't want. For now, we actually eventually want the name of the assignee ID, but for now, we'll change this to sum. And there we go. So I'm just going to rename my elements here. So by double clicking, I'm going to say status, start date, end date. I'm going to call this one duration in days. So that's how long that step is going to take. And then we'll just, for now, call this assignee ID. We're actually going to bring in the name for that later on. Okay. If you don't already have it open, click Format from the side pane and make sure that your row subtitles are turned off. If they're on, you'll notice that your top level here has a status. If it's off, it's correct. You only want the statuses for the work packages. While we have our format opened, go to specific column and look for the duration column. So we're going to apply our settings to under specific format, specific column, under duration, our days. We're going to move that alignment to the center. And that should clean up our visual. I would like to change the format of these dates. So instead of May 01, 26, maybe I would like to see something like 2026, 0105, or 2026, 0501. So I'm going to go back to my project schedule here, and I'm going to select start date. And I'm going to go to the top here and see the format of the start date. And I personally like the short date better as a format, so I'm going to select short date. And similarly, I'm going to change the end date. So I'll go to end date. And now I'm going to change the format to short date. And there we go. So now you can play around with the formatting and the sorting. Depending on how you want your project schedule to look, you can sort by status. You can sort by start date, end date, duration of days. You can sort by that. You can sort by these WBS elements. So, play around with your project schedule and see what you like best. Now we are going to show the percentage of each work package status. We first need to create measures for the statuses, which are not started, in progress, complete, on hold, and overdue. And we're going to use DAX to do this. To create the measures, select Enter Data under Home in the top menu. Under Name, write Project Measures and click Load. You'll now see the project measures has been created here, and there is already one column, which we will delete shortly. Click the three dots and select New Measure. We'll start by creating WBS under review. That's an additional one, if I forgot to mention that. So I'll rename this to WBS under review. And I'm going to say count rows and filter project schedule. And the filter expression is project schedule status is equal to under review. So we only want to return rows of this table, the project schedule table, where the status is under review. And then we're going to count those rows, and that's going to give us the number of work packages in the project schedule that are under review. And then click enter. Okay, so we have our first measure created here at WBS under review. Now that you have one measure created, you can go ahead and delete that column. So click the three dots and say delete from model. And then click yes. Moving on to the next one, we're going to create WBS on hold. So I'm going to click the three dots of project measure, select a new measure, rename it to WBS on hold. And now we can copy and paste. So we have 6 of these to do. So I'm going to go back to WBS under review. And I'm going to copy what's written here and change it for each status. So WBS on hold, we're going to count the rows where we filtered the project schedule table for the rows that are just, in this case, on hold. Then click enter. Now let's do WBS completed. So click the three dots under project measure, new measure, rename it to WBS completed, and we'll paste again. And we're looking for those rows that have a status of complete. Now we have completed here, but we can call that complete. Well, we'll say completed, but inside the table, I believe it says complete. Okay, and moving on to the next one, that should be not started. So I'm going to say again, WBS not started is equal to, and then change what we're looking for here, not started. Okay, so we should have 6. Moving on to in progress and overdue. So once again, we're going to create a new measure, rename it to WBS in progress. I'm going to do our paste, and we're looking for in progress. Click enter. And then the last one we have to do is called WBS overdue. So a new measure. We can paste, and we're looking for overdue. So if you want to see if these measures work, you can simply click anywhere on this page and you can drag them here and kind of see like what is the count in our table. So in our table, our project schedule table, we have 3 work packages that are completed, right? Delete that. Let's say in progress, there's 12 that are in progress, and so on and so forth. What we really want are the percentages of these. So we're going to have to divide these numbers by the total number of rows in the project schedule. So now that we have the count of WBS completed, we need to divide it by the total number of work packages that we have. So I can take this calculation here, this DAX here, and I'm going to say divide by count rows of the project schedule. And I'm going to click enter. And now this is a whole number, but I do want it to be a percentage. So I'm going to go make sure this is clicked, and I'm going to go and to the format, and I'm going to change this to percentage. So now, if I drag and drop this into my page, I should see that 6% of my work packages are completed. So now I'm going to divide the rest of the measures to reflect the percentage of the status. So I'm going to click on completed, which is now done, in progress, which we need to do. So I'm going to add another bracket, and I'm going to say divided by count rows of project schedule. I'm going to click enter. I'm going to check. Okay, that's good. Looks good. Just going to delete those two since I don't need them. Not started. It's still a whole number, and I haven't done its conversion to a percentage yet. So I'm going to say, put my bracket, divided, and then paste. Click my bracket, click enter, and I'm going to change this to be a percentage. I'm going to check what my result is. 65% of my work packages are not started. That does seem accurate. It's visually as you go down the list here, that the majority of these work packages are not started. Okay. So now I'll go to on hold and do the same thing. Put my bracket, divided, and paste. Close my bracket, click enter, and make sure that it's no longer a whole number, but it's a percentage. I'm going to delete this and get this out of the way. Overdue, the same thing. Put my bracket, divided by the count rows in the project schedule. Close my bracket. Make sure this is a percentage. And then under review, same thing. Open bracket. It's divided by the total number of rows from the project schedule. Close my bracket. Click enter and make sure that this is a percentage. Okay, so now we're just going to move our project schedule down. So you can hover over the matrix and you'll see these three dots. You can grab them and move your visualization down. And in this case, that's the furthest it'll go because that's the dimensions of our page. So in order to change that, you can click anywhere on the page and then go to Format. And under Canvas Settings, you'll see that the default is 16:9. Go to Custom, and you can extend the height of that. So let's just bring it to 1,000 and click Enter. So now that we see we have much more room to move down our visualization. So again, you can grab it like so and move it down. So we do want our percentages to be visible, the first thing that is seen here. So I'm going to click on Card. And now I'm going to drag in each of these percentages. So before I do that, I do want to update the name. So I'm going to say WBS percentage completed, just so it's accurate as to what these actually are. Percentage overdue, WBS percentage under review, WBS percentage on hold, WBS percentage not started. Now the formatting of your DAX is another issue entirely. For the sake of this series, the assumption is that you have tried DAX, or this is not the first time that you're seeing it. I'll do some videos on DAX itself at a later time, which will go over good formatting, etc. But for now, this is okay for our purposes. So I'm just going to say percentage in progress. All right, that looks good. Okay, so now in no particular order, you can start dragging in your percentages on top of this card here. So I'm going to drag the percentage not started. I'm going to click and drag the percentage completed. I'm going to click and drag the percentage in progress. I'm going to click and drag the percentage overdue. I'm going to click and drag, well, I was on hold, okay? I'm going to click and drag the percentage overdue. And I'm going to click and drag the percentage under review. So it looks like just visually, we don't have any that are, is that overdue? Yeah, we don't have any that are overdue. Let me just take a look at what that is here. Percentage. Yeah, we don't have any overdue, which is good. And it looks like the majority again are not started. And then the remaining, the next highest amount are in progress. So really we do want it to be a whole number. So I'm going to go back to percentage in progress. And I'm going to change this decimal place to 0. I do want a whole percentage. And I'm just going to check the other ones are 0 and 0, 0, 0, and 0. And that looks good. Now these names are a bit long, so I'm going to shorten them. So this is WBS percentage not started. I'm going to go over to my build. I'm going to double click here and I'm just going to shorten this to say not started. And I'm going to again shorten the next one to be its status completed and in progress. And this one should be overdue. It looks like I missed one. What was this one? On hold. Oh, I didn't click enter maybe. There we go. And then percentage under review. So I'm just going to call that one under review. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, so now we can start playing with the look and appearance and what we want, visually this kind of KPI area to look like, right? So I'll leave that to you to play around with, but this is the general idea. Now you can center these, you can move this text up, you can change the color. So maybe we can go ahead and do some of those together. So I'll click here and I'll click on the visualization and I'm going to go to format. So I personally like, maybe I want the text to be on top instead of at the bottom. So I'll go to label. So I'll go to call out and I'll go to label. And right now the position is at the bottom and I'll move it to the top. Okay. Maybe value. Maybe we want the values to be in the center. Maybe that looks better depending on what you like. Maybe you want a specific status. Like right now this applies to all cars, but maybe you want all the completed percentages. Maybe you want all the completed work to show green. Like this is, what we're looking for, right? So we can give it a green and say that's done. Maybe if you do have some overdue, you can mark that red if there's a value there. Or maybe it's more important that something's not started. Like depending on what's important to you and your organization, you can customize this, make these a little bit smaller, bigger, whatever you need to do, and to make it work for you. For me, I'm going to make these percentages slightly smaller. So I'm going to go again to the format, click on my visualization. I'm going to go to the format. I'm going to go to call out. I'm going to go to value. And I'm just going to make this from 24, maybe to 18. Oh, okay, that was still on just the one. So make sure it applies to all. And actually, let's see, 24, I'm using 18. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, it looks like the completed one wasn't done, so let's just go do that one manually so it matches the rest. Okay, perfect. All right. So now our percentages, the percentages for our statuses is available for the user. The real value in this KPI bar here is for it to reflect the overall. It's like a summary of the project schedule and the statuses. So you really don't want it to be changing as you're clicking around for this particular visual. So what I would do, I would click on this visual and I would go to format and I would say edit interaction. So when this particular visual is being interacted with, I don't want this visual to change. So when you click Edit Interactions, now you can say, for example, you can turn on and off a visual. So what we want is when this visual is being interacted with, you say Edit Interaction, do not edit this particular visual, right? So if I'm clicking here, I don't want anything in this visual to change. See how that's the difference there. So we are now going to add some HR data into our project. This may be the point where you use a third-party connector to bring in HR data from another application or system. For the purposes of this video, we will be using data in Excel. Please let me know in the comments if you would like to see this type of integration or would be interested in seeing a connection to any particular system. Coming back to SharePoint, create an Excel file called HR and add 3 tabs. Rename these tabs Assignee, Role, and Job. The Assignee tab will contain the assignee ID, the assignee name, the job ID, the job role, and an image of the assignee. The Role tab will contain the role ID and whether the assignee is an employee or an external stakeholder. These will be more visible later when we're looking at risk owners. The Job tab contains the ID of the job, the name of the job, and the salary, overall salary and daily salary. I already have these tabs filled out, so I will add the information in, and you can view this in the provided Excel files. And once filled out, your tabs should look something like this. Once again, we're going to bring this file into Power BI, so you will need to get the URL of the file. Go to Share, copy link, and you can use the formula bar, and you want to remove everything after .xlsx. You want to copy this link, and this is the link you're going to provide to Power BI to import your data. Coming back into Power BI, we now want to import our HR data that we created in SharePoint. So go to Get Data, type Web, select Web, click Connect. So now you want to paste that link that you just copied from SharePoint. And again, if you need to connect to 365, go ahead and do so. And select every single tab that we created and go to Transform Data. Once you're inside Power Query, we want to do the same transformation of our data. Again, our generic columns are here, so we want our actual column names. So we're going to go to Transform, use first row's header, click anywhere in the query, Control A, detect data type, and the same thing for the job and the role table. So use first row as headers, Control A, detect data type, role, use first row as headers, and then Control A, detect data type. So that's all we need. That's the only transformation that we need to do for those three queries. So we can go back to home and click close and apply. Now that our HR data has been imported into Power BI, let's take a look and see the assignee table is now here, the job table is now here, and we should have one more. The role table is now here, which looks great. And let's go to our data model view, which again we're going to clean up. So I'll start a little bit of the cleanup now since some of these tables are getting in the way a little bit. Measure schedule. Okay. And our measures table doesn't need to be, it shouldn't be connected to anything. So we have role, job. Okay, so when you're doing data modeling, there's star schema modeling and other types of modeling, but generally you want to look for the heart of your model, right? And you want to model around that, right? So it appears to be that at this time, the heart of our model may be the project schedule, and that will change. But you do want to start to arrange your tables neatly around the heart to get the best visual results, which we can continue later, but just for now, so we can start to see things a bit better. Okay. All right, that looks good for now. Make sure there's nothing else. Okay, that looks good. Okay, let's go back to our report view. Originally, we had used the assignee ID in our project schedule table, but what we really want is the assignee name. That's a lot more intuitive for a user to know who's actually going to be working on this work package. I'm just going to resort my work package here because when I was playing with the sorting earlier, I had moved things around. I do want it to be 1 to 5, so I'm just going to sort by the project here, this column. Okay, so now we see that, again, we have the assignee ID, we want the assignee name, which we did just bring in. And because the assignee ID was a key in the project schedule table, yes, we also have the assignee ID as a key, as a primary key in the assignee table. Those two tables were automatically connected by Power BI, and this relationship, as you can see, that was automatically created, is based on the assignee ID key. So going back, I'm going to expand this a little bit here. And so again, we want the values. So I'm going to look for assignee, and I'm going to bring in assignee name. So now by default, you see that it's the first assignee that we have here, and that's an issue with the data model itself. What we want is the assignee that corresponds, and reset. And what we want is the assignee that corresponds to the work package, not just the first assignee that it picks up, right? So let's go back to our data model, and we're going to click on this relationship here. So we want to change the cross filter direction from single to both, and then click Save. Okay, so let's go back to our view, and we can see now that our report view has been updated correctly, and the assignee corresponds to its correct assignee ID. Now we don't want the assignee ID, so I'm going to remove that here, and I'm going to rename first assignee. I'm going to rename it a name for this visual. You can right click and say a name for this visual, and I'm going to say who was assigned to this work package. And there we go. The last thing that we want to do for our project schedule is to add a filter so that we can search by assignee. So what we're going to do is add a slicer. And the slicer is going to be a drop down. So I'm going to go ahead and just click outside, and I'm going to click slicer. And so I selected this visual and I want to add the assignee name. So I'm going to click and drag the assignee name onto the visual. And by default, it comes in as these checkboxes, but I do want to drop down. So I'm going to go to Format, and I'm going to say Slicer Settings. Right now it's a vertical list. I do want the drop down, so I'm going to select drop down, hit Close, Settings, Format in the build. And then I can see here now that I can now search my project schedule by assignee. So I can search all the work packages. Let me close this so we can see all the work packages that are assigned to Dallas, all the work packages that are assigned to Domingo, and so on and so forth. If you want to be able to select more than one assignee, what you'll need to do is just make a small change in your in your actual slicer itself. So go back to Format, and again open Slicer Settings, open Selection, and then turn off the multi-select. So this option says allow multiple selections and checkboxes only when the Control or Command plus click is used. And you don't want that, right? You want to be able to just use the drop down and select as many assignees as you want. So turn that off, and then now you'll be able to see that you can select more than one assignee. So you can select to see the work packages assigned to Dallas and the work packages assigned to Domingo. And that is it for now for our project schedule. So that's one of the reports that we have here, okay? I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so you can start to see what it looks like. And I want to see the whole schedule at the same time at once instead of having to really scroll. That's just my personal preference. So I'm going to click anywhere on the page and I'm going to go to Canvas settings and I'm going to make the height maybe. Let's try 1300. And I'm going to expand the project schedule so I can see the full schedule without having to scroll. And that looks like I need a bit more space, so I'll say maybe 1500. Okay, I'm going to expand that a little bit more. We're still not quite there. 1500. I did move it down a bit, so let me see if I have enough space to move it up. Okay, there's good. That's good. There we go. So now I can see the entire project schedule with the work package, the task, the activity, the status, start date, end date, duration, and assign. One more thing you can do here is you can actually change the color of the text. So for example, if you want to be alerted when maybe a work package is on hold, right? So you can go back to your project schedule by clicking on the actual visualization itself. Okay. And we're going to click on, go to the format and go to cell elements. And then right now, specifically, we're looking at the status. So we want to change the color of the status whenever it's on hold, right? To draw our attention. So there's background color, font color, icons, web URL. So these are conditional actions that can be taken. So I'm going to turn on the font color, and then it's going to pop up this conditional formatting for me. So I'm going to say you can go by gradient, rules, or field value, but in our case, we want this to be under rules, and it's on the field status. So if the value of status is, I'm going to say on hold, I would like to be alerted of that visually, so I'm going to change this to red. Okay, you can change it to any color you want. You can add new rules if it's under review, if it's anything you want really here, right? So again, if the value, the rule is, if for the field status, if the value is on hold, make that red. Let me say okay. And then we can see now here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, that now every single work package that has a status of on hold is marked red. So that's another way that you can kind of add some more visualization and help the user see or be drawn to or alerted by specific items or areas of your project schedule. So at the end of the series, we're going to go back and reformat visually all of these reports, and we're going to create our overview page. So we're going to leave this project schedule report as is for now. We have our percentages of our statuses at the top. We can sort by assignee, and we have our entire project schedule based on our work breakdown structure, the status, start date, end dates, and who is assigned to complete that work package. We are now going to work on our financials report, which is similar to the project schedule report, but of course we'll have all of our financial data. So go ahead and click New Page and rename this page to Financials. So we already have our project schedule done. So here, the financial data for this report will be contained in a table called WBS Financials. I will create this file in Excel in SharePoint and import it into Power BI, and we'll go ahead and use it. So we've had a bit of experience now doing that, so I won't show that again. If you do need to see how that's done, rewind and go back to previous segments in this video or the first video, and you'll see an example of how to create those Excel files in SharePoint and import them into your Power BI. This is the WBS Financial Excel that I created in SharePoint. It has the work package name, the assignee, how many material units were used per work package, the material amount per unit, how many equipment hours per work package, and the equipment amount per hour. So I'm going to save this as WBS Financial, and I'm going to import this into my Power BI. Similar to how we created the project schedule, we are going to now create the financials report by bringing in elements of the work breakdown structure and adding in financial information. Let's do that now. Select the matrix visual. For rows, add in the project name from WBS project. And scroll down. I'm going to scroll down and find project name. The project activity from WBS activities. Task from WBS tasks. And work package from WBS work packages. Work package name from WBS work packages. Okay, so now we should have the work breakdown structure that we recognize, that we did last time in our project schedule. So I'm just going to open that up so we can have a good view of what we're looking at. Okay. Under values, bring in assignee from the assignee table. So that was added from the HR work we did. So there's our assignee name. We're going to bring that in. Okay. Days from the project schedule. So we have days. And we want the sum of our days. So I'm going to change that. Oops, not this one. I'm going to change that to sum of days. So we have our actual days for each work package. The newest table, WBS Financials, has been brought in from SharePoint here. So from that table, I want to bring in the material units. So what I wanted to do, I want to bring it in under values. So let's try that again. I want to bring in the material amount per unit. I want to bring the equipment hours. And then I want to bring in the equipment hour amount per hour. So I'm just going to rename these so they're not as long and they're a bit more intuitive. So I'm going to rename this one to units. I'm going to rename the sum of material amount per unit to be $sign per unit. I'm going to rename the next value here to equipment hours to shorten it a bit. Equipment hours. And then I'm going to shorten this one also to equipment costs per hour. Okay, so let's take a look and see how that looks. That looks pretty good. We can rename this value here to assigned, as we did in our project schedule. Okay, and then we'll have days here. We're trying to be a little bit more succinct with our labeling, as our table is going to be a little bit bigger than it was for the project schedule. Our matrix, sorry, is going to be a bit bigger than it was for the project schedule. Okay, so this looks good. We are now going to add 3 measures into the financial table: fixed costs, labor costs, and actual cost. In our example, the fixed costs are the costs that the work package has for the materials and for the equipment per hour to complete that work package. So we're going to go to Project Measures, click the 3 dots, Create New Measure, and we're going to call this measure Fixed Cost. So we're going to use DAX to iterate through our entire WBS financial table, and we're going to multiply material units by material unit costs, equipment hours by equipment hour costs. So I'm going to say SUMX to go through each element in my table. And the table we're going through is WBS Financial. And we want to do our material units. So WBS Financial material units times WBS Financial, the amount per unit. Okay, then just go to the next line, just for formatting. And then we want to add that to, we'll go again, SUMX, the equipment hours times the amount per equipment hour. So I want to go to the WBS financial table, and I want to get the equipment hours. So I want to multiply that by the amount per hour. Okay, so that's what you should have for fixed costs. Click Enter. And now we want to bring in that fixed cost into the table. So you can click on your table, and you can go look now that this fixed cost measure has been created. And we want to add it to the values. So click and drag underneath equipment amount per hour. And there's your fixed cost. But this is a currency. This is a dollar amount. So what we really want to do is go to fixed costs and change it from general to currency. Now we're going to add our labor cost. So go back to Project Measures, click New Measure, and call this measure Labor Cost. As for our labor cost, what we want to do is we have our assignee here. So we know that our assignee has a daily salary, which is found in the job table. So we have the days duration in our project schedule, and then we know how much the employee's or the assignee's salary is per day. So we want to multiply those two numbers, and we want to come up with the labor cost for that work package. So I'm going to go SUMX again because I want to iterate through each element in the job table. So I'm going to say SUMX. I want to go to the job table. So say job, like that, okay. And then I want to get the daily salary the daily USD salary from that table. So here we go. And we want to multiply that number by SUMX, the day's duration of the work package that is found in the project schedule table. So I want the project schedule. Saw it up there. Say project schedule. There it is. And then I want to look for the days amount in project schedule. There we go. Okay, now we'll close that and click Enter. And again, we want to bring this into the financial table as a value. So I'm going to go find my labor cost and bring it under my fixed costs. And again, we see that this amount should be a currency, the dollar amount. So I'm going to go make sure labor cost is selected. I'm going to go to currency. And you may or may not have your row subtitles on or off. So if your table doesn't look exactly like mine, you can just toggle this amount on or off. Okay, so we don't want to see those row subtitles at the moment. So turn them off. Now we see some values here that, while accurate, we don't want to see that amount, that number of decimal places. So I'm going to go in again to labor costs. I'm going to limit that to 2 decimal places. And then that looks much cleaner. That's great. And finally, we're going to add our actuals. So go back to project measures and go new measure. And we're going to call this one actual. And this one's nice and easy. So this is the actual amount is the fixed cost plus our labor cost. So this is the actual amount that this work package costs. And we know that this is going to be a dollar amount. So let's go ahead right now and change that to currency. We'll just set the decimal places to 2. And I'm just going to go back to fixed costs and also set the decimal places to 2 just in case. Okay. Okay, so going back to actual. Now that we have our actual, we can bring that into the table. So we're going to click and drag that into values. Okay. So there it is, actual. Now this is a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to expand this page. So again, you can click anywhere outside your table and you can go to Canvas settings. And I'm just going to make the page bigger so I can have a better view. Let's give that 1000. And then I'm just going to widen this a little bit to 1300. And that should allow me to bring this down a little bit and not be so stuck at the top underneath the measures when we create them. Okay. Okay, that looks great. Now we're going to add our totals at the top of the table. So you can use totals inside this table depending on what you prefer. But for the sake of this exercise in this example, we're going to add our totals to the top of the financials table. Okay, so let's add the card again. And that's a little bit big, so I'm going to make this smaller to sit nicely on top of our financial table. And let's add the fixed cost. Let's add the labor cost. And let's add the actual cost. Okay. So really the fixed cost in this example is the work package cost. So I'm actually going to rename that so it's a better reflection of what it actually is. So say work packages cost. And labor costs, that's correct, and actual costs. So I'm going to say actual. Well, actual is okay. That's right. Okay, so let's just center these. So I'm going to click here on the card visual and say call out for all of them. I want the label actually to be at the top. So I'm going to go label at the top. And I do want the value centered. So again, so click anywhere on the visual, go to call out, make sure that all cards is selected. We want the same thing to happen to all the cards. And we want to go to value. We want to center the value here. And then we want to have our labels at the top. So again, labels, the position is the top. And again, I would like to see the entire financial table. So I'm going to increase the size of my canvas one more time by clicking anywhere outside this visual and make sure that format is open. Go to canvas settings and you can increase this. So the last change I made was 1000. So I'm going to make it maybe 1400. That might be enough. I might have to increase that because I want it to be big enough so that I don't have to scroll. I do want to see, I don't have to scroll inside the visual. I can scroll here, but not inside. So I want my entire work breakdown structure to be visible. So I'm going to open each level. And it looks like it's still not big enough. So I'm going to put the height to be maybe 1800. And I can shorten it later, but I don't have to keep extending it. Okay. And this is just a personal preference. If you don't like to see or need to see your entire work breakdown structure, you can leave it as is and allow the user to scroll. That's fine too. But I'm just going to expand this. There we go. We've reached the end of the scroll. Okay. So that was about right, 1800. Okay. So with that, that's the end of the financials video. We're going to come back, as I stated in the previous video, for the project schedule. We're going to come back and do some formatting for a good look and feel for the entire project and each report and the overall overview. But for now, thank you for watching. And in the next video, we are going to create something that looks like this, which is our risk register. And we'll go over cause, risk, effect, and the risk owners will be coming in, probability and impact, and calculating that risk score, which is going to be very critical for us to be using that risk score to be making decisions. And when it comes to the overview, eventually we're going to be bringing in quantitative, qualitative analysis, and that risk score is really going to start to get more important as we start to build towards our overview diagram. See you in the next video.